Hi, I am Jose.
And I'm Krista.
We are Connected Remodeling.
We're a general construction company here in Los Angeles that focuses on luxury residential remodeling. Okay, so today we're going to talk about permit requirements and regulations, kind of helping homeowners understand like the whole permit process in general. What's required, what if they don't use permits, and then what's the difference basically between remodeling, inspection, new builds, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Let's hop on right now.
Let's hop into We're so natural. Okay, so the first question I have is what's the difference between remodel permits and new construction permits?
Yeah, so what is the difference between those? One of the things that comes to mind right away is when you are doing a remodel and you're not doing anything structural that indicates the city that you need to basically move any walls or things like that. Those are considered over-the-counter permits, which are able to apply right now and get in a couple of hours most of the times. Versus a new construction. In new construction, as you guys will know, you're dealing with blueprints. When dealing with blueprints, all the process of engineering, the process of plan check, and that happens before you actually get your permits. It goes through the city plan check, and that's when they determine you're good to go. No more requirements are needed on their side. That's when they go ahead and issue those permits to you.
Yeah, and just to kind of like add to that, so the remodeling permit, it really depends on what you're doing. Say you are moving walls, and you're building a new kitchen here or a new bathroom here when there wasn't before, you're obviously going to need blueprints for that. So there is a longer permitting process because you'll need to go through plan check where they check the blueprints to make sure that all the structural is appropriate. The goal is obviously that you have a house that is safe and stands, the test of a decent amount of time. So that's what these are for. But a general remodel is right here in Los Angeles. They've actually made it, and we work outside of Los Angeles too in the various cities. But for the most part, Los Angeles, they make it so easy that you can just go online, input what you're doing. For a general remodel, we say like a like for like remodel, and then you can get your permits like right away. And then when you're doing a new build, that's going to take quite a bit longer because there's typically like soil testing involved and there's a lot more that it needs to go through in order to, there's structural engineering, and it's going to take longer. So I would say that's like just really to emphasize what you're saying as the remodel permits are much quicker.
Absolutely.
Sometimes within like an hour, they can be, if you're just doing a bathroom remodel, they could be given to you within like an hour. So
yeah, it's a much simple procedure just because the construction already exists. You're just going through the process of remodeling or just upgrading the space, and that to them it doesn't put the it doesn't give you any red flags that you're gonna be checking the roof, opening up the exterior walls, and things like that. Everything is within the interior, so it doesn't affect really the structure, the layout of the space.
yeah. One question on here that I think I can answer is how much should you budget for permits when planning your remodel project? And I handle that kind of a lot on our estimates. So I would say, it's going to vary depending on what your remodel looks like. If it doesn't involve walls, if you're in a condo versus a house, because condos do typically require more, they're treated more like a commercial space. So it requires more than an actual like single family home. But like a safe number, I would say is between 1,000 and 2,000 is roughly. A lot of contractors will put that on their estimates. They won't include any of the permits, and it's because we don't know the prices. What we do different than I think some contractors is we allow an allotment for your permit, so that way we like to, and I said this probably a million times, but we like to make sure that the homeowner can see all the expected costs, as opposed to some contractors who kind of keep that as a hidden fee and you're not expecting that extra $2,000, $1,000 cost depending on what you're doing. So that's just for a remodel. I would say is 1 to 2,000 is a safe number to roughly budget, but it really depends on what you're doing. And
Correct.
I think every contractor should do how we do, where we provide an allotment, but they don't.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Especially because for a contractor like us is it's gonna be way more easier to, put a budget for these permits, even though it might go up a little bit, or it'll still stay within the range. And that way, like Krista mentioned, it's always better to give the client a perspective of what the expenses will be. If it's less, how awesome, right? You at least understood the pricing from the very beginning. You were budgeting for it. You were not just always wondering what is it going to be. Now you know it's going to fall within, and that alone gave a lot of peace of mind to a lot of the clients that one that can go with the blindfold, not understanding what's going to be, but once they have at least a understanding, tends to go much smoother. There is at least the budget is there for when the time comes.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we do with our like I said, with our estimates. At first glance, we're typically a higher number than a lot of contractors, but we've also seen other contractors' bids on similar project that we bid on, and they're excluding these permits a lot of times. So they're typically excluding permits, sometimes aesthetic materials, sometimes they're excluding so many things, utilities if they're required, various things that are important to let you as a homeowner know. So I think look for that, and if you don't see the permits on your estimate, inquire about that, because that is an extra couple $1,000s most likely that you might be required to pay.
Yeah. And another things to consider when it comes about permits, and it can vary depending of the city, is public work. A lot of the times when you have to utilize sidewalks or the city per se to put in a trash bin or things like that can always trigger different numbers. But really should be your contractor's responsibility to, make a few calls to the city just to give you an expectation of what these prices could be. That way, it doesn't hit him or hit you guys, because at the end of the day, the work needs to happen and the budget needs to be there.
Yeah. So my next question is, what happens if you got caught remodeling without proper permits? And I know a lot of people will remodel full homes, exterior, interior, without permits. But in all reality, if that's how what's happening, if you decide to do your home remodel without permits, an inspector could easily walk in and put a stop notice on it, meaning stopping the project until permits are pulled. And obviously, we recommend pulling permits to make sure that your contractor is doing the job properly with correct inspections, codes. There are a lot of contractors or like contractors that will do remodels with no permits, and they will actually skip steps, so they won't even do it to code, which is why they're not using permits, or they're unlicensed. I'm not sure. But we definitely recommend using permits. That way, it has so many benefits, but I'll go on to that later. But the first thing you need to know is, if you get caught remodeling without permits, you're most likely going to get a stop notice, and probably the inspector who gives you the stop notice, once you do get permits, is going to give you a lot of headaches and start analyzing the full home.
Yes, that is correct. It's when you're able to, it's very smart to just go ahead right from the beginning and go ahead and pull the permits. One, it's to be respectful, not only with the client, but also with your neighbors, because we understand the construction can be very loud. For a very short or extensive period of time, we're going to be, in that property, we're going to be bringing in large vehicles, we're going to be causing noise. And it will give you, the peace of mind that, anybody can go to the neighbors at this point, let them know there will be construction going on. That way, if they do hear noise, they don't just wonder. Like many times in the past, we have seen how many people got caught by, just
The
starting the work.
neighbors reporting to the city.
The neighbors are reporting noise, right? And not even saying, oh, there's work going on, but they're reporting noise. And then the city, they're already on the field. So they'll just swing by. They see any activity, they'll come knock on your door. In many of the cases, the door's already open, like Krista said. They'll walk in, they'll cut you already doing something that you're supposed to pull permits for. They'll just stop you. At that point, your whole construction will be delayed, and it could be months. Because at that point, like Krista mentioned, your inspector will not be seeing you with good eyes. They'll go super extensive at that point, like she said. Well, they will scan the full house. Now they will find things for you to correct, and
Yeah, I mean,
you just don't want to be in that position.
yeah, just to take her on that, because we've heard a lot of stories that what is most likely going to happen if you get caught without permits on your project. Obviously, like you want to assume and hope that you want to assume and hope that, sorry, I had to stop my timer. Um, if you get caught doing remodel without permits, you could potentially, like, the inspector will start to pick apart the whole house because they don't know what you're doing. So say you're just doing a bathroom, and they'll start to look at your whole house. Say you have a house that's 100 years old, they could potentially start to see all the issues with that home, that were done without permits in the past years and years ago that now you might be responsible for. So
Yeah.
not only will the construction take longer for sure, but most likely you're looking at way more expenses overall once the inspector starts to make you do things that you weren't originally planning to do. So it's just better to plan with permits from the very beginning, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at that point, you already are, on one step ahead. Anybody calls the city, they won't even bother to send anybody because you will appear in the records right away that you're there. It's expected you'll be making noise. And honestly, as we do it all the time, every time we start a construction, a remodel, we always go to our neighbors next door. We let them know. We give them a card that we're gonna be performing some work. There'll be some debris happening somehow. Some of those things, go through the property. Always call us right away, and we'll take care of it. That always is being given us, even, it opens doors for us actually because now the neighbors know and we are that respectful. We always got more jobs because of that.
Yeah, I mean, good to be respectful. Okay, so my next question. The homeowners want to know what's the difference between over-the-counter permits and plan check permits. And I feel like we kind of like talked about it a little bit, but over-the-counter permits, quite clearly, like we said, especially in LA, it's almost all done online at this point. Some of the smaller building and safety departments in various small cities here in Southern California are, you gotta go in. But for the most part, everything's done online and they're quick and easy. And that's usually a like for like permit. So they sometimes don't, they might not require blueprints, or if they do, it's more like a site plan, like a hand drawing, as opposed to plan check permits, which require going through sometimes structural engineering, what's called plan check, to make sure, like I said before, that your building is safe. So they'll do the calculations that the architect provides, and they'll make sure that the calculations are accurate to make sure your home is not going to fall down, basically.
Yeah, essentially time.
Yeah, it's basically time.
It's basically time because one is you won't be able to just go ahead and pull permits. Somebody, well, in this case, your architect will have to make your blueprints, right? Present them to the city, get them through the process of plan check. So it really falls into time.
Yeah.
And time is, money. So funds and time will be definitely affected.
Yeah, it will cost more to go to plan check for sure. Take longer for the full project. Sometimes they send it back with corrections, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so speaking of just differences overall, we want to know what different requirements are between single family homes and condominiums. I mean, most contractors don't even want to work in condominiums. We do. We don't mind it because we like people, but I know that there's a lot of liability in condominiums. So I'm gonna tell you right now, most likely if you're in condo, you're probably gonna pay more for your remodel than a single family homeowner for so many reasons. But if we're just talking the permits first.
Yeah, definitely more liability, and every contractor will see that because now you're dealing with multiple units. A lot of the times, the unit needs to be remodeled is in between, right? You have neighbors here, you have neighbors up here, here, and here. So that means all surrounded units by this unit that will be affected. And by what, you might say? Perhaps now you need to, remodel your water, right? So a lot of the times these waters are connected. So it requires to send notice in advance and you're going to be shutting off the water. When you return these waters back on, you got to make sure that everybody's, water pressures are, you know, correct, before you actually call it out. Okay, it's ready to go. And there's a lot of problems when it comes to that, especially if these buildings have like old plumbing, right? Every time water is being turned back on, debris just flows through the pipes, right? So the unit you're working on, you're able to do it because you're right there. The other ones that you're not usually tends to call you or tends to call the management company that, hey, after this work was happening, now my faucet is pressure is bad or my shower. A lot of contractors already went through that process and decided they just don't want to do it. We're used to, especially because we're used to dealing with HOAs. We're used to just dealing with this scenario. So for us, is we're just planning events.
Talking to
This is going to
people.
happen. Another thing that we do, we actually go ahead and before we even touch anything, we check just to make sure we're not, blamed on for something that we didn't.
Yeah, and then just to go back to the permits, which we were talking about. So permits for a condominium, usually there's a general building permit that's required, but then each individual trade has to be pulled separately.
Yes.
Why I actually don't know, but I just know that you probably know a little bit more
Yeah.
about why. But regardless, it's say you pull a general building permit, or the contractor will pull the general building permit. They're also required to pull electrical, mechanical, plumbing, whatever it is that they're doing in addition to just the general building. And they'll also need to, with a condominium, typically talk to and speak to with the HOA, coordinate with them. Sometimes your contractor will have to supply them with what's called a COI. That means certificate of insurance. Their workman's comp, and they might have to get additional permits for trash on the street, parking sometimes, depending on the location. Here in Los Angeles, there's parking issues. Trash on the street could be a big issue. Versus a single family home where there's usually actual space to put
Right.
trash inside, depending on how large the lot is. And then for that one, you get what's called a combined permit, and it covers typically the electrical, the mechanical, the plumbing, anything that you're doing is involved with that combined permit. So basically, you just have to pull extra permits for condos, and I would say typically they cost more.
Yes, that is correct. And the one difference is because they're treated as commercial buildings, versus single family homes are technically residentials. And when it comes to dealing with commercial units, it's a little more intricate because every wall that is shared now, when you're building it back, you have to treat it as a fire resistant, walls, and they have to go under codes. They have to be inspected separately. You have to follow the right procedures in order to get your signatures for your inspections. So once again, is considered a commercial property.
Okay, so which remodel projects require structural engineering approval versus standard permits? And I would say we kind of already tapped on this, and I would say obviously new builds, if you're adding additions, those things have to go through the plan check, get the engineering involved. But if you're just doing like a regular, I mean, that one's pretty easy to answer. If you're just doing a regular remodel, like we said, meaning like for like, you're keeping the toilet in the same place, you're keeping the walls in the same place. You're not doing this movement inside the house when it comes to the actual structure. You won't need to have that most likely. Depending on how, if you are moving mold, obviously you do, but
Yeah, and another thing that has become a trend and is still today is still being done is most people would like to have now open concepts, right? Open concepts now basically requires actually moving walls and having all that section not to be suspended on a structural beam. So that will actually require your architect to come in and do your measurements, basically your weight. That way, the right beam goes into place, and that will go actually under plan check as well.
yeah, I actually think that people are moving away from open concepts because what if you're cooking and I mean, this is obviously like the design side, but if you're cooking and you want to keep your kitchen dirty while the party's going on, you don't want to clean it right away. Um, I think you want to hide it. So I think people are moving away from open concepts, but I don't know. That's what I've seen. I don't like open concepts. We have different styles, types. Even though we're together, guess what style we have? Closed concept.
I'd rather have a beam.
Okay, my next question that I have from the homeowners: how long does the typical permit approval process take for different remodeling types? Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, if this is a very comprehensive. It's a very large remodel that's going on. Usually, it will involve redoing your plumbing, redoing, there will be some structure made. So at that point, blueprints, a site plan will be requested by the city. So that will have to be made, submit to plan check. When you're doing a full remodel where it involves also like your doors, and I'm talking about exterior doors and windows, that would definitely will take a little more time to go through that process and get your permits at that point.
Yeah, I think like on average, I've seen like 6 to 8 weeks kind of be the time frame for that. Or roughly anticipate that. That way you can understand like, okay, maybe in 6 to 8 weeks I'll be starting my construction. I would allow that time frame just to be safe. Sometimes it's surprisingly quick, which is we're always shocked by. But if you're just doing a basic remodel, meaning like you're remodeling the whole house, painting, you're putting in a new kitchen, putting a new bathroom, but everything's staying in the same location, and you don't need actual blueprints, you're just doing what's called the like for like, then that is almost immediate. That can take a day. That can even just be the same day sometimes if you have what you're doing already figured out. So that can be much quicker. But like Jose said, if you're changing windows, changing walls, if it's a new build, it could take much, much longer. Like it could take potentially 3 to 6 months. But I would say general remodels less than a week for the first for regular permits, and then from there like 6 to 8 weeks. But it really just depends on the time of year, what's going, like if people are sick in the building safety department, if it's the time of year that everyone's busy, they might take longer in general. But yeah, I would say that's a safe timeline.
One question that came to my mind because I have been asked this before, and I have come to the event where some contractors have gone ahead and did these remodels, and then I met the clients, and the clients were told by the contractors that when they're doing that like for like, do I need to build permits? The answer is yes. You actually do need to build permits, especially if you're doing your full bathroom remodel that involves you waterproofing, for example. Why? Because you want the city to inspect these as well. A lot of the times when a contractor goes ahead and doesn't pull permits, I see them where they just cut so many corners.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you're right. Like I have heard that a lot. Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't need permits because I'm just putting in your bathroom, but everything's staying in the same place." And Jose's totally right. You do need permits if you're doing a whole new bathroom because the city needs to inspect the waterproofing underneath. So yes, you still need permits for it. But a lot of people assume that you don't because it's just a, like for like, and you 100% do. Okay. How does a homeowner prepare for remodel inspections to avoid delays and failures? I would say the first thing you do is have your contractor be in charge of that and you not worry about it. They should be in control of handling the inspections. You should not be facilitating the inspections. And I would make sure when you're actually in the process of hiring your contractor that you find out like, hey, who's in charge of facilitating the inspections or the inspector? And that should always be the contractor. They know what they need to do. Sometimes they can make corrections right there on site if there's an issue. They can even challenge the inspector because inspectors are human. They're not always right. But you should not be doing that. Your contractor should be doing that. And if you're the one doing it, I would just say inspectors' time is really valuable. They have a certain amount of inspections within a day. So I would say make sure that if you have any questions, keep it short, keep it simple, but really mainly let your contractor deal with the inspector.
Yeah, that is right. And as common practice before you even call the city, we also go ahead and do our own testing. We got to make sure, if we're running electrical wires, they are, properly installed, they have the right protection, they have their metal plates in the right places. Just overall, we're following code. When it comes to doing the plumbing, same. We do testing. We fill up the lines. If we end up, where we're replacing the water drains, for example, we fill it up. We do the testing, and in fact, we actually leave those lines full of water. So when the inspector comes in, they're able to see there's still water there. No leaks.
Perfect.
You have it good to go.
And in addition to your contractor facilitating the inspections, I would say one thing we do that I would hope that every contractor does, but I know that's not the case, is we pre-write our inspection schedule to optimize the time the inspector's actually there. We also make sure that they're focused entirely on the area they're focused on. So we bring them straight to where they're going, unless it's the full house, obviously, then. But if we have a bathroom, we go straight to the bathroom. We don't wander around too much. We just go do what we need to do, get it done. We value their time, and I think the inspectors really like that. But also we optimize it. So if as much as we can combine inspections in one day so the work doesn't get delayed too much. And again, that's not something that I think a homeowner should do. It's something I think that the contractor should be doing. So I would bring that up. Are you scheduling inspections quickly? Like for some contractors, I would say they might, not us, but they might finish waterproofing and then schedule the inspection, but we preemptively schedule it, so therefore there's no days in between. They might end up having a week between, or 2 days, or a weekend. So
Yeah.
I would say that's the biggest thing, is make sure they're also scheduling their inspections ahead of time, because you do usually have to schedule them out a few days depending on availability.
Yeah, and having your inspections pre-scheduled, it's easier to move them a day, another day, that trying to schedule exactly when you finish, but then you get this gap. But it's easier to like cancel and move it an extra day than actually trying to schedule it and then get a couple of days in between.
Yeah, and that's just the ways we've tried to optimize our timeline. We've heard so many people say, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're done already. I can't believe we went that fast. And to deliver the quality product that project, I say it's project, whatever. But to deliver the quality service that we do, it does require heavy focus on scheduling, because if we're remodeling a home, especially if it's an occupied home, we want to get in and out and let you have your home back exactly the way you want it. And not every contractor is focused on time, but our general focus is time and quality, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I definitely have something to say about this. So, which permit violations can affect your home's resale value and insurability? The insurance thing, that can definitely be affected by not having proper permits. But I do know this in Los Angeles, this was recently created, if I'm not mistaken, that whenever you remodel your home and you try to sell it, you have to disclose the contractor, as well as like the permit information. So you do it without a contractor, without permits, it's going to affect your resale value. How much, I don't know. I'm not a real estate agent, but I do know that that's a requirement. So, and it's because so many people are doing flips, they weren't they weren't getting permits, and they're basically flipping it into a lemon, and then it's not something that's worth buying. So that's why that was created, I'm assuming. So I would definitely take that into account, because this is a newer law. I think it was created last year or 2 years ago. Time flies. So I think it was 2023 or 2024 that this was brought up.
Yeah, and one thing that definitely is not going to fly is if you did an addition, either it was you made an extra room, you made an extra bathroom, you turned a half bathroom into a full one. Those will be brought out at at these and when you're trying to sell this home. One is because there's not going to appear on blueprints, and right away it's going to give you a red flag, especially during the inspections that buyers get. There's going to be no proof of these extra rooms, and at that point, somebody is probably going to try to schedule something with the CD, and if it doesn't appear, you might end up getting just getting validations, over the work that it was done, it was not permitted. And most of the cases, the city will actually force you to take it down, especially if it didn't follow code. Sometimes if whoever did it for you, even if they did it by code, they will open up a few areas just to make sure that the procedure was followed corrected. Sometimes if the city it's like reasonable,
And
they will allow you.
And what he's talking about is if you're trying to get your home like valuation based on what it is versus what's on the blueprint, you'll have to revise that, and you won't be able to revise it without getting that inspection, because you can't put blueprints through. They won't. It doesn't go that way.
And at that point, you will be forced to actually make blueprints and have you go through engineering, plan check.
Yeah.
And then that's when you can schedule a inspection for the work that was done already and hoping that we pass.
Without having to tear it all down. And just talk insurance. I mean, I feel like all of us in Los Angeles understand that like insurance companies typically are not itching to pay for issues that you have. So if you don't have the permits and then you happen to have an issue, they'll find out. You can easily look up the information online. It's almost like public knowledge that you can find the permit history. So if you have a brand new bathroom and you have a flood and it's clearly a new bathroom based on the age of the parts, which we can tell when things are new, you could have an issue with that. So just a couple of final notes before we go to talk about permits in general. Do you have anything to add?
Don't get intimidated by a lot of the times when you think you're going to involve the city and it's going to be very hectic and very crazy. Bringing the right contractor can really facilitate that process to be much smoother. And always up to go through that process, because at the end of the day, you're going to save yourself worries, trouble in the future. You wouldn't have to think about it because you did it the right way.
Yeah, and I would just really emphasize what he said is a lot of homeowners when they talk to us, they are like, they kind of feel like the inspectors are out to get them, or the inspectors are going to give them a lot of headaches. And these inspectors, they're all previous contractors of some type. And their goal is not to make your life miserable. Their goal is to do their job. And their job is make sure that your home is safe and done properly.
Correct.
You want to have safe building structure. You want to have safe plumbing, electrical, and you want an inspector that wants you to have that. Most inspectors are really nice to deal with and they're really easy to deal with. So I would say I would really emphasize what you said about don't be intimidated by it. Just make sure that you hire a contractor who understands the permitting process, and make sure that a couple things that they either include that on your estimates or disclose that they're not on your estimate. Whatever that is, make sure you understand if they're there or not, the permit fees, and then that they're facilitating the inspections. So definitely make sure your contractor is handling that. You shouldn't be handling that because it's going to take more time if a homeowner is doing it versus a contractor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I want to add one more thing to that is the inspectors, city inspectors, there are on the homeowner side.
Yeah,
Here to make sure your home, like you said, is safe and is ready for you to move in and enjoy actually have some longevity.
yeah, they're there for you. And honestly, like we're not intimidated by the inspectors either. We talk to them; they give us the opportunity to ask questions about maybe some more specifics that we don't know. So once we all just stop being intimidated by the inspectors, I think that they are there. The city is there just not to give you a headache, but really to make sure your home is safe.
That is right.
So that's all they have, right?
Yeah, that's all we have for today. We're happy to keep answering these questions, and of course, just keep bringing them up, and then hopefully one day we get to work together.
Thank you, and watch us next time.